Welcome back to Drumcast TV. My name's Darren Mathis. Glad you could tune in. Today we're going to hit some more voicemail messages. I've accumulated quite a few over the last few months, so I'll try and get to at least a couple today. So thanks for tuning in to this podcast of Drumcast TV for May 19th, 2009. Let's hit the first voicemail message.
Hey Darren, it's Nick calling from Florida. I'm 14 years old and been playing for about 2 years now. I recently acquired a double bass pedal, and I've been trying to get the hang of keeping a steady beat with the double bass pedal, but I just can't seem to get a hang of it, at a regular tempo. I can do it pretty slowly and get it at a good speed, but when I try to do faster music, I just can't get the beat with the double pedal. I just keep messing up, and I was wondering if you had any tips on keeping a steady beat with a double bass pedal. So thanks in advance, and I really appreciate your podcast. Great job. Thanks.
Well, thanks, Nick, for that question. I should rename the name of this podcast to How to Play Double Kick Drum, because I get that question so often, and questions similar to Nick's. Nick says he's able to play pretty well and controlled at lower tempos, but once he speeds up, he kind of loses control, isn't able to play the double kick drum as well. I'll tell you the short answer to that is you're not ready to speed up yet, because once that's an indicator. Once you get to a tempo where you can't keep it steady anymore, then you should practice. You should go back to practicing at a slower tempo, and that speed will just come with time. It's just like practicing anything. I can relate to, I also play guitar, and if you've ever tried to alternate pick really fast, like when you shred on guitar, you're trying a new technique, anyone who's ever got any kind of proficiency in guitar or drums will tell you that you have to do it slow and be able to do it slow and practice in many cases for hours before you can speed it up. So Nick, don't get frustrated. Just keep at it. That's really good to hear that you can play slower at a steady tempo. And what you might want to do is keep track of your progress with a metronome. Figure out what tempo you can play at a slow pace and try playing that maybe even till the point of failure where your muscles just can't play anymore. Come back the next day, turn that metronome up maybe a couple of beats per minute and see if you can play to that speed to the point of failure. And it's kind of monotonous, but that's the only way for most of us that you can build up that kind of dexterity and speed and coordination and control on the double kick drum. So I'm playing heels up and just trying to keep each, and I've got a double kick drum pedal here. It's not two bass drums, it's just a DW 9000 double kick drum pedal. So you want to try and keep each note consistent and even sounding. If one foot is louder than the other, you get kind of a lopsided da-dum, 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 da-dum kind of sound. So you don't want that necessarily, unless that's the sound you're going for. So just practice that at that speed. Set your metronome, find out what that is, and just practice. To break up the monotony, you could try different patterns on your hands over the top of it. So once you get a handle on that tempo, try speeding it up a little bit. That's another way to break up practicing that too. Instead of just doing constant 16th notes, 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda, 4 eanda on the kick drum, try and break it up into phrases on the kick drum. Maybe do 2 sets of 16th notes on the kick drum, then alternate with the snare drum, just so your legs get a slight chance to rest and you can regroup your tempo. If you think you're getting a little bit ahead or behind with the kick drum, switching back to your hands will get you back in the comfort zone and get you ready for that next set of 16th notes. Example might be something like this. Instead of doing 4 beats or 4 notes on the kick drum, try 3. So I'm going to play some sort of pattern with my hands, maybe a 16th note pattern. And throw in 3 notes on the kick drum every once in a while. That helps break it up, but it still forces you to play in tempo and with control on the kick drum. So another thing you could do is play that same kind of pattern on your hands, but then start interjecting notes on the kick drum. Maybe 1 note, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. I'll try that. It's just a matter of spending some time with it. One thing I've found is to vary your technique. Try some heels up on the double kick drum, then try some heels down. See if you can get proficient at both. It's good. Like I've mentioned before, I like to play heels down every once in a while just because it allows you to maybe be a little bit more subtle. But as far as speed and endurance, I prefer playing heels up, and you can get a lot more power that way too. And just a quick commercial announcement. I am still offering my 2006 Unirunner video drum collection. You can find that at drumcast.tv/2006. It's more than 4 hours of drum lessons that I gave in 2006. Recorded them all. They're available for download or on a DVD set. You can check out the details and the titles. A lot of them are things I initially thought were the most important aspects of drumming to me, at least in 2006, so it's kind of like those first 40 or so lessons that I could think of. Now I pretty much kind of go off of viewer calls and voicemails, but back then I was just kind of winging it based on what I thought was important about drumming. So if you're interested, check that out. That'll definitely help support this podcast.
Hi Darren, this is Lauren from Oakland, California. I just want to say thank you for your podcast. They've been really helpful. It's really cool, somebody else's perspective and understanding about the drums. Keep up the good work. My question has to do with tuning the drums. How do you approach it? And I play in a band. I want the drums to stand out in their own space. How should I think about tuning them with my other bandmates' instruments in mind? And then, more specifically, what's the most efficient way to capture that fundamental tone of a particular drum? Taking into account the size and the type of the drum. Is it pretty subjective, or are there some important rules to follow? How do you tune the bottom heads? Are they as important to pay attention to as the top heads? What's your approach? Again, thank you, and I look forward to watching your next podcast. Bye.
Hey Lauren, thanks for your questions. Appreciate it. I would suggest having someone else, preferably someone who plays drums, play them so that you can go out and listen, whether it's from the audience perspective or another band member's perspective. Lots of times you might realize that they sound good to you, but maybe you want the drums to carry a little bit more, so you maybe want to go with less muffling on the heads, or you'll want to tune them up a little bit more so they get a little bit higher in pitch and can cut through the music a little bit more. A lot of it has to do with what kind of music you're playing too. If you're playing jazz or softer music, a lot of the subtleties in the drums can come out, as opposed to metal. Like for instance, you're going to want a kick drum that can really is distinct and has a lot of click to it, maybe in the style you're going for. But there are no set rules in drum tone. In fact, the people who break ground are the ones who go against the grain and try new things. As far as achieving the fundamental tone of your drum, some drum manufacturers like DW will print the note of the drum that the shell resonates at inside the shell. Supposedly if you tune the top and the bottom head to that note, your drum will resonate the truest or the longest to that note. Me, I kind of do it by ear. I had an episode or podcast on drum dial a while ago. I actually sold the drum dial because I found that it was just easier, faster for me to do it the way I've done it for many years, and it sounds just as good. So I kind of do it by feel and by ear. And I end up tuning the resonant or the bottom head just slightly tighter usually than the top head. It gives you that real type of sound. But as far as finding out what the fundamental note of my drums is, I wouldn't know how to do that other than stripping all the hardware off, peeling the, on these ones I have a wrap on it, peeling the wrap off, taking all the hardware off and hitting it with my hand and then listening to it. So, but just by experimenting, you'll be able to tell where your drum rings the longest, and that may be important to you in your music, or may be important to get a certain pitch to cut through the music. It really varies so much from drum to drum, not only through the woods that are used, but also the dimensions of the drum. So all I can tell you is to experiment. Start off with your drum head on there pretty loose is what I usually do, and then just kind of tighten it up. As you're tightening up, kind of tap on it. Try and get a decent interval between your drums. Usually they say, I think it's a third interval where it's the same as the song Here Comes the Bride. So that's pretty close intervals with my drums. Try and get them so they sound good. I'm not necessarily tuning them to a specific pitch at all. I have no idea what pitches those would be tuned to. I'd have to get out a guitar or keyboard and figure it out. But I just try and get them in a range where they seem to resonate a decent amount. With these, there just seems to be the kind of a sweet spot for me where they resonate and they also fit nicely with each other. And I usually start by tuning the highest tom first, because that one I usually want to sound the best because I'm hitting it the most, and that kind of gives me a basis for what interval to tune them all to. So I hope that answers some of your questions. But if you can record your drums too and listen back, that's going to give you quite a few hints as to maybe what you need to increase or decrease frequency-wise or volume-wise within your kit to stand out or have that space you talked about within your kit. Thanks again for your questions. I hope to get to some more voicemails in the near future. Well, thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, keep practicing, and God bless.